Quote, Love, Unquote by New Amsterdam. Chapter 11. 3 days later finds Kirishima sat on Bakugou's couch, legs crossed out in front of him as he balances the heavy script on his lap. Bakugou's en route to recovery. A doctor had shown up 2 days ago to look him over, had handed over some prescription medication, and had muttered under her breath about celebrities who never grew up or learned to take care of themselves. Kirishima was a bit affronted by that. Even if Bakugou couldn't be trusted to take care of himself, Kirishima was there to pick up the slack. But the medicine is doing its job, even if Bakugou has spent most of the past few days asleep. Kirishima can be grateful for that, at least. Bakugou had asked him not to leave, and so Kirishima stayed. He was left with too much time to watch Bakugou as he slept, his face eased of all the tension, except the barest furrow in his brow. He'd curled up under his layered blankets and murmured quietly in his sleep. Kirishima, sitting across the room, would look at him and wonder what thoughts were intruding upon his dreams. Tonight, Bakugou had woken up late and dragged himself to shower with only the barest grumbling. Kirishima had vacated the bedroom for him, grabbed the script as an afterthought, and brought it to the living room with him. Because He Is My Hero by Agi Toshinori. Bakugou clearly doesn't want him looking at it, but that just ensured Kirishima would. Now, he sucks in a breath as he pushes back the cover and begins to read. He's never looked at a script before, and it takes him a moment to adjust to the formatting. The scenes and staging directions are sparse and economical, giving just a hint of what the movie will look like. The dialogue starts off fast and snappy, but there are moments where it lingers, and by the time Kirishima's been skimming for 10 minutes, he's already come to one monologue, an epic speech. The main character is an unassuming young man who receives an enchanted sword from a strange old beggar, and soon sets off on an adventure. He falls in with a friendly apprentice witch and a straight-laced knight, and together they journey to defeat a great evil. Eventually, they rope in the neighboring kingdom's runaway prince to their enterprise too. Kirishima finds himself grinning as he flips through the pages. The characters are bursting with personality, and if he pauses between scenes, he can see them playing out before him. After a few minutes, he flips ahead in the script, looking for the character marked for Bakugou by the note. The Dragon King enters the story in the second act. He introduces himself by attacking the young hero, then refuses to listen to the other companions' explanations, and leads the entire group into an ambush, all because he won't take anyone else's word as true. Kirishima winces as he reads. The Dragon King is a formidable character, but he's also his own worst enemy. He has his own reasons for wanting to defeat the evil the hero is going after, but he can't allow himself to accept help or ally with the group. He constantly throws himself into danger, insistent that he can do it all on his own. All told, he's a bit of an idiot, even if Kirishima finds his fiery independence endearing. What are you doing? Kirishima snaps the script shut and looks up, caught red-handed. Bakugou is standing just by the doorway, wearing nothing but a fluffy towel wrapped around his waist. His hair is wet, plastered to his forehead and neck. His skin is already red from the shower, rivulets dripping down his chest and the length of his arms. His chest rises and falls unevenly, illness still holding a cough inside him. There are bags under his fierce eyes, but when he fixes Kirishima with a glare, he's nothing but intimidating. Bak, Kirishima thinks, dragging his eyes from Bakugou's pecs and up to his eyes. Well? Bakugou demands, utterly unabashed by his nakedness. Kirishima can't really blame him for that. They are in Bakugou's house, and Kirishima is the one who read the script without permission, and obviously Bakugou has nothing to be ashamed of, body-wise, since he's the hottest person Kirishima has ever laid eyes on, days of vomiting illness or not. I got bored? Kirishima tries, holding up his hands in what he hopes is an innocent gesture. Bakugou opens his mouth to respond, then just shakes his head and mutters something to himself, under his breath. What was that? Don't touch my stuff, asshole! Ever heard of an NDA? He stomps into the room, reaching over the back of the couch to grab the script from Kirishima's lap. His fingers leave wet patches against the script's pristine cover. No? Kirishima tries. Bakugou hasn't tried to murder him yet, which is generally a good sign. Bakugou rolls his eyes. Non-disclosure agreement. As in, when they send you the fucking script like this, you're not supposed to let the entire goddamn world read it. I'm not the entire world, though, Kirishima protests. I'm your boyfriend. I mean, as far as these script people know, right? Bakugou stares at him for a long moment, like he's trying to make Kirishima stop existing through sheer force of will. Like that's the kind of scandal I need, Bakugou spits out, disgusted. Actor's dumbass boyfriend leaks script of the biggest movie of the year. Yagi's epic ruined by big gay crush. Maybe it's because he's still on the mend, but Bakugou's muttering is decidedly audible and coherent. Kirishima rests his arm along the back of the couch and pushes himself up, looking at Bakugou with round eyes. Is that what our story is? He wonders out loud. You had a crush on me? Bakugou hisses like a boiling kettle, one hand clenching where it holds up his towel, and the other crushing the script until it's folded in two. Don't you even pay attention? He seethes. Kirishima blinks, thinking back. They'd been told that the two of them had met at a Riot concert, but the way they'd worded it, Bakugou had just been dragged along by Hagakure, and Kirishima hadn't put a lot of thought into that narrative to begin with. In his imagination, they'd been two people in the same extended circle of fame who happened to collide. I mean, who would even believe that anyway? Kirishima continues, laughing. Why would you have even known who I am before we met? Forget having a crush on me. Don't people generally have crushes before they get together? Bakugou grinds out from clenched teeth. Kirishima rests his chin against his hand, considering. Sometimes. Oh man, you should have seen Sero when he first started working for Ashido's management company back in the day. He's friendly to everyone, right? Of course you'd know. But he'd always be hanging around, waiting for Ashido to finish rehearsal or whatever, and he'd bring her these flowers, and those sour candies she really likes, all before they were even dating. It was sweet, you know, but he was definitely the one with the crush. Do you have a point? Bakugou says, tiredly. Kirishima shrugs. Not really. Just, you know, if anyone had a crush between the two of us, it would be me. When Bakugou looks straight at him, his eyes look like coals warmed over a fire. Bright hot, a vivid and violent red. Bakugou must step closer, but Kirishima doesn't register his movement. Instead, he just realizes that Bakugou is in his space, standing on the other side of the couch, leaning forward so that their faces are only inches apart. His skin is still a ruddy pink from his shower, his shallow breaths audible in the short space between them. Do you? Bakugou asks, roughly. Kirishima is frozen in place, looking at him. Does Bakugou know what he's asking? And shouldn't the answer be obvious to him by now? Kirishima had told him he cared about him just a few days ago. And while he cares about a lot of people, no one has ever provoked as much feeling in him as Bakugou has. And all of that has really just been layered on top of what Kirishima felt for Bakugou before he met him. Admiration and attraction and the undeniable pull of Bakugou's star. He could just say yes and admit it. Say that his feelings have been tangled up since before he started pretending, and that things have only gotten more complicated since then. He could lay it all out for Bakugou. Tell him what he really wants. Kirishima opens his mouth to speak, but all that comes out is a hiccup of noise. He leans back, trying to put distance between himself and Bakugou, but ends up tipping over from where he's balanced on his knees. He flails, both his arms windmilling, and one of his palms smacks against something as he struggles. Motherfucker! Kirishima lands sideways on the couch, scrambles to get himself righted. When he looks over, Bakugou is covering his eye with one hand, wincing and cursing up a storm. Shit! Kirishima rolls himself over the back of the couch and comes up next to Bakugou, reaching for him with nervous hands. I'm sorry, I panicked. Fuck off! Bakugou growls, pushing Kirishima away with one hand. Kirishima presses closer, grabs for Bakugou's chin, and tries to get a good look at his eye. It's a little red, but he doesn't look hurt otherwise. Kirishima breathes a sigh of relief. Once again, they're so close together. Kirishima is painfully aware of Bakugou's nakedness, of how much Bakugou is laid bare before him. This is dangerous, he thinks. But even so, he can't bring himself to step away. You're so useless, Bakugou mutters, finally putting space between them. He frowns, thinking something over. Go grab a jacket, we're going out. Huh? Bakugou clicks his tongue against his teeth, gathering his patience. I'm gonna go get dressed, and you're gonna buy me some fucking dinner. I haven't eaten anything but your stupid store-bought soup for 3 days. The soup was great, Kirishima says first, on instinct. Then he frowns right back at Bakugou. Plus, it's like close to midnight. Where are we gonna get dinner? Bakugou lets out an impatient noise, shaking his head. He reaches down to grab the script up from the ground where he dropped it, then turns and stalks towards his bedroom with far more dignity than any man clad in only a towel should have. At some point, Kirishima is going to have to stop being surprised by Bakugou. But for now, he's still awed when Bakugou reappears within a few minutes, bundled up in Kirishima's red Riot hoodie, with a black denim jacket pulled over it. The feeling persists as Bakugou ushers him out of his apartment, then marches him down several city blocks, until they reach a hole-in-the-wall restaurant, with a fluorescent sign that announces, yes, they're open at 12:30 a.m. Welcome, one of the waitstaff calls out, and Kirishima and Bakugou enter, and the bell hanging over the door chimes. The woman, dressed in black with a red apron at her waist, looks at them in recognition. Bakugou-san, we haven't seen you in a while. Kirishima responds with nothing more than a non-committal grunt, then leads Kirishima to an empty two-person booth in the far corner of the restaurant. Shouldn't we wait for them to seat us? Kirishima asks. Bakugou scoffs at him. Look around, dumbass. Does this look like the kind of place you get seated at? Maybe he has a point. The entire restaurant would fit into Bakugou's apartment 3 or 4 times over. There's 2 freestanding tables and booths lining the wall. The chef is leaning against the counter, waiting for orders. The only other customers at this hour are a middle-aged couple huddled in the other booth on the opposite side of the restaurant. You picked it, Kirishima says, sliding into the booth and shrugging off his jacket. There are menus balanced against the wall, and he grabs one to start flipping through. Whatever, Bakugou mutters, taking his own seat across from Kirishima. The waitress comes over after a minute. The usual, Bakugou-san? Kirishima mouths, You have a usual? Bakugou ignores him. Make it 2, Nakamura, Bakugou says, not bothering to look at the menu. The woman, Nakamura, glances between Kirishima and Bakugou with a glint in her dark eyes. You're Bakugou-san's boyfriend? Kirishima shrugs helplessly. Seems that way, doesn't it? Nakamura laughs. Make him take you somewhere nice next time. He can afford it. Bakugou scowls at her. Are you gonna get off food or what? Yeah, she says lazily. Don't be rude, Bakugou-san. She walks back towards the kitchen after that, leaving Kirishima squinting suspiciously at Bakugou. What? Bakugou snaps. This is your place. Kirishima says, pointing an accusing finger at him. My place, Bakugou echoes, in his Kirishima is an idiot voice. You know, your place, your haunt, the restaurant where you're regular, and everyone knows you and you have a rapport with the waitress. It's 10 minutes from my apartment. Of course I come here a lot, Bakugou mutters, rubbing one hand down his face. Don't make a big thing out of it. Fine, Kirishima says, sitting back with a happy little grin. He looks around the restaurant again, this time with a more curious eye. This is the place that Bakugou likes. That's enough to make it interesting to him. Bakugou sits in a grumpy silence until Nakamura returns with their food. 2 bowls piled high with steaming noodles, meat, and vegetables. She sets the bowls down in front of them, winks at Bakugou, and then retreats to the front of the restaurant. For all that the restaurant isn't much to look at, the food is delicious. Kirishima can't resist the enticing smell, stuffing his face with noodles, until the spiciness of the dish catches up to him, and he lunges for his glass of water. Bakugou looks up from where he's been methodically shoving noodles into his mouth. Weakling, he says, the corner of his mouth lifting up in a smirk. You could have warned me. Bakugou shrugs. I could have. With renewed determination, Kirishima digs back into his meal. Everything is cooked to perfection, and when he finds an almost boiled egg in his noodle broth, he nearly moans with how good it is. Bakugou must have been starving, because he eats through his entire meal all at once. When he's done, he sits back in his seat and watches Kirishima fish around in his noodles. So, Kirishima says, in between bites, are you going to do the movie? Are you seriously starting on that right now? Yeah, I am, Kirishima says, crunching on green onions. I mean, I'm curious. It seems like a really good script. It's the only one I've ever read, but I'd definitely go see that movie. Bakugou rolls his eyes. It's a fucking blockbuster. Everyone is going to go see it. That's more reason to do it, right? Good for your career and all that. I don't need exposure. I'm not a fucking amateur. I'm not doing it. Bakugou looks up, a little crestfallen. It's probably not his place, but he thought there was something nice about the idea of Bakugou working with Yagi Toshinori again. Something that would help Bakugou get over the past, maybe. Why not? He asks, keeping his voice carefully casual. Bakugou grinds his teeth. Because it's not the kind of bullshit I want to do. Kirishima takes another bite to hide his smile. So what kind of bullshit do you want to do? Bakugou's cheeks color a startled pink, but eventually looks up at Kirishima and mutters, the same thing I've been trying to do forever. It takes Kirishima a moment to realize what Bakugou is talking about. But then, the answer becomes obvious. Ever since his days on UA, Bakugou's been pushing for one kind of storyline, and he's never got to play it out yet. You want to do a romance? Kirishima asks, around another mouthful of noodles. Bakugou taps his fingers impatiently on the table. No. I get offered about 10 shitty romances a day. Who the hell do you think you're talking to? If I get one more script for a character as an arsehole to some girl, and she falls in love with him anyway, I'm gonna lose my mind. Kirishima chokes on a laugh. You get typecast a lot, huh? People are just fucking lazy. I'm good at this shit, and I don't need to keep playing characters that are just what people think I'm like. I think you could play anyone, Kirishima says, honestly. Your character in Ground Zero wasn't an arsehole, though I guess Nobuhiko was, for a while. But if he'd been an arsehole to Ayane, I wouldn't have liked them together so much. I always thought they were really sweet. Bakugou rests his elbows against the table, chin against his hands. You're a real fucking fanboy, aren't you? I never said I wasn't, Kirishima reminds him. And besides, Yagi-san's movies seem different from everything else you've done. It's all magic and fantasy and dragons. You don't think that'd be cool? Don't, Bakugou says warningly. I'm not gonna do his piece of shit movie, so everyone can just stop already. Everyone? Oh, Yagi's movie was the one Ida was talking about, back at the beach house. The one he was encouraging Bakugou to take, because Uraraka and Midoriya and Todoroki had already signed on. You really hate them all that much? The words are out before Kirishima can think better of them, before he can think of a way to phrase them so that it isn't so much of an accusation. Bakugou grimaces. Who says it's about them? Maybe I'm tired of playing the bad guy to make shitty Deku look good all the time. Ah. Midoriya must be playing the film's protagonist, which probably makes Uraraka the helpful witch, and Todoroki the runaway prince. In the young hero's clashes with the Dragon King, he'd definitely come off better. I sort of figured they'd end up friends, Kirishima says, leaning back. Isn't that usually how stories like that go? I mean, even if they don't like each other, they're still on the same side. Bakugou makes an irritated noise at the back of his throat. I fucking told Sero what kind of script I want next. I've done every possible thing to make that happen. So if I don't get what I want, then maybe I need to find a new agent. Kirishima winces. Sure, he and Sero aren't the friendliest they've ever been, but that doesn't mean he wants to see him get fired. Don't worry so much, he says. I'm sure whatever it is you want, it will come through. Bakugou huffs and sits back in his seat again. Yeah, he mutters. Whatever I want. He's so bad at saying things directly, Kirishima thinks. The times when he's opened up truly to Bakugou have been moments of frustration or vulnerability. But at a baseline, he doesn't want to say what he's thinking, what he's actually feeling, at all. For some reason, that makes their situation seem special somehow. Sitting alone together in the middle of the night, in the place that Bakugou frequents. He's letting Kirishima in, albeit in a different way that Kirishima was maybe asking for. But he's probably still getting more of Bakugou than anyone else has. At least you know, Kirishima says thoughtfully. Some people can't even figure out what they want. Yeah, dumb people, Bakugou says, staring down at his hands. He looks up, sees the expression on Kirishima's face, then bites down on his tongue. What? You don't know what you want? When he says it like that, it does seem stupid. But all Kirishima can do is shrug. Sometimes, I don't know, I just get a bit confused about it. I mean, I love making music. I love Riot, I love writing songs. And sometimes I think I really want to sing, perform that way for everyone. But I can never do it, so maybe it's not something I actually want. I don't always know exactly which way I want to go. I can't help it. Moments like these, Bakugou's gaze is too intense, too perceptive. Do you not know, or are you telling yourself you don't want it because you think you can't have it? Kirishima swallows nervously. How is he supposed to know the difference? If you hold yourself back from something for long enough, how can you remember if you wanted it at all? Bakugou frowns. Just do whatever you want in the fucking moment. It's not that complicated. If you want to sing, then do it. No one's going to tell you can't, or that you suck at it, because you don't. People aren't that dumb. They wouldn't keep listening to your stuff if they didn't like it. A weight lifts off his chest as he processes what Bakugou is saying to him. And maybe it's something that Bakugou has tried to say before. He thinks Kirishima is good, and worth it somehow. A moment of clarity hits him like a bolt of lightning, illuminating everything around him. Right here, right now, Kirishima knows what he wants. He looks up and sees Bakugou leaning towards him, and thinks, maybe he wants the same thing. Kirishima reaches over the table and brings his hand to rest on Bakugou's cheek, like he's asking for permission. And Bakugou, who always wraps up what he means in a shield of pretense, just blinks at Kirishima and leans a fraction of an inch closer. Kissing Bakugou has now become familiar, Their lips press together, soft and chaste, before they pull apart, and then come back together again. Bakugou's still running warm, heat radiating off his skin. Kirishima strokes his thumb along Bakugou's jaw, rhythmic and soothing. For all they've practiced this, for all they've acted like a couple, this moment is different. When Kirishima kisses Bakugou now, there's an honesty in it that he cannot mask, and he doesn't want to. When they pull apart enough to look at each other, Kirishima smiles, and Bakugou purses his lips like he's fighting the urge to do the same. Endeared, Kirishima laughs. You know, I don't care what Nakamura says. Huh? This is probably the best date I've ever had. He ends up crashing on Bakugou's couch for the night, since it's well past 2 a.m. by the time they make it back to the apartment. He passes out quickly, rousing some indeterminable amount of time later, when Bakugou stalks into the kitchen to make himself breakfast. Kirishima turns over, groaning, and quickly falls back asleep. The next time he wakes up, it's because his cell phone is shrieking at him. Extending one hand out of his heavy blankets, Kirishima gropes around until he finds the phone, pulling it into his nest and trying to read the blurry screen with sleepy eyes. Kaminari, 7:15. You didn't come home last night. Everything okay? Jiro, 8:30. You do remember we have a 9 a.m. meeting with Kayama-san, right? Ashido, 8:45. Kirishima, where are you? This is important. Kaminari, 9:15. Ashido's freaking out, just so you know. And because she's freaking out, I'm freaking out. Where are you? Jiro, 9:30. The other two are freaking out, just in case you didn't get the memo. But we're scheduled with Kayama-san after lunch. Let us know if you're alive before then, please. Ashido, 10:15. Kirishima, 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 Kirishima. Kaminari, 10:25. Kirishima, 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 Kirishima. Ashido, 10:35. Kirishima, 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 Kirishima. Kaminari, 10:45. Kirishima, 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 Kirishima. Kirishima winces and scrolls past another 5 or so messages to the same effect. Jiro, 11:50. Our meeting's at 1:15. Be here, call me, whatever. Just do something before I murder Ashido and Kaminari. Slightly dazed, Kirishima checks the time. 12:30. Jolted into awareness, he throws back his blankets and jumps to his feet. He's got time, he can make it. He just needs to make himself presentable and across town before then. Bakugou! He yells out, not waiting for a response. I'm late for a meeting and I've got to go, but I'll see you later, okay? Okay? Bye! By some miracle, Kirishima makes it to the studio. He's wearing yesterday's clothes and his hair is down his face, but he makes it, and that's what matters. The staff and security at reception shoot him odd looks as he runs for the elevators, but he waves them off with a laugh. It's okay, I'm Kirishima Eijirou, he calls out. You know, from Riot? I'm madly famous, don't worry. No one tries to stop him, so that's a plus. 3 minutes later, he slides into Kayama's office, looking like he was brought in by a tornado. Sorry I'm late. Sorry for everything. I'm here. Ashido, Jiro, and Kaminari are sitting around Kayama's desk. They turn to stare at him, and then everyone starts speaking at once. Dude, Kaminari says, throwing his hands up in the air. What the hell? If you're gonna ditch us for your boyfriend, you could at least tell us. Ashido crosses her arms over her chest, pouting. Jiro passes her lips for a moment before saying, Everything okay, Kirishima? From behind the desk, Kayama clears her throat. Children! They all turn to face her. Kayama is wearing her usual black and white, with silver bangles at her wrist. Today, her dark hair is pulled into a knot at the back of her head. She looks down at Kirishima over the rims of her glasses. Take a seat, Kirishima-kun. she says. We've got things to discuss. Feeling uncomfortably like he's been called into the principal's office, Kirishima pulls up a chair and squeezes in to one side of Eijirou. As I was saying, Kayama continues, you are all at crossroads right now. Your album is almost complete, and you have one last concert with Present Mic next weekend, and you need to start considering next steps, ways to capitalize on your recent notoriety. She casts Kirishima a significant look as she says this, and you can't help but be offended. He and Bakugou haven't been in the tabloids for a while, and even before that, it was supposedly for the band's own good. What? He says, as Kirishima and Ashido look at him. You must have seen Twitter this morning, Eijirou says, tiredly. I think you're overestimating me, Kirishima says, confused. Set up a Google alert for yourself like the rest of us, Kaminari tells him, reaching over Eijirou to punch Kirishima in the side. Ashido, for her part, just passes over her phone. Kirishima takes it and glances down at the screen, seeing his own shock of red hair first. It's a photograph that looks like it was taken through a window. Bakugou and Kirishima, sitting in a booth in a rundown restaurant, kissing over the table. Both of their eyes are closed, and they're utterly oblivious to the fact that they're being watched, photographed. Something twists in Kirishima's gut like a snake, cold and tangled. Last night hadn't been for the cameras, or for fame. It had been genuine, and seeing it captured in a photograph where the lights are too bright and the picture is blurred makes it seem like it wasn't even real, like it was just as fake as everything else. Kirishima starts to say, but then his voice tapers off. What is he supposed to say about this? Kayama sighs softly. It's not bad press, she says lightly, but I'm here to make your music careers, not just buy you some cheap fame. I want to focus on you on this album. The four of them turn back to her, nodding. Kirishima's never felt the atmosphere between them to be this serious. I think you need to go on tour, Kayama continues. Get out, let the country see you, let the people hear you. We can announce it when we finalize the date for the album. I've already lined up a few acts you'd make good openers for. One in particular, actually. Kirishima barely hears her. He looks back down at the picture, at the growing count of likes and shares. This is what they all wanted, isn't it?